Welcome, good afternoon, and welcome to the big show. We call it the big show every single day with me. And the reason we do the big show is because we like to talk about whatever it is that's going on and on with respect to Pittsburgh sports and the Steelers and everything else. And of course, the Pirates and the Penguins and whatever else we can figure out what we're going to talk about. I think that usually we start with Steelers, and obviously we got some Steelers topics we'll get to. But today, I'll be honest with you, we've got to start with the Pirates. Over the weekend, the Pirates basically got swept in their own home ballpark by San Diego. And again, the Padres are a good team, but the reality is it's just not really been very, very good for the Pirates in this year. And really, if you look at where they're at right now, there's no reason to believe it's going to get better. They're 2-8 in their last 10. Like I said, they got swept by the Padres. And they also, I think, when you look going back to the series before that, they played the Cubs, and they split the first two, and then they had Paul Skenes going in the third game. And the next thing you know, they somehow lost the third game. So they didn't even win a series where they had Paul Skenes on the mound to basically make sure that, if you think about it, Paul Skenes on the mound in order to win the series. The reason you have Paul Skenes on the mound, or the reason you have him on your team, is simple: to win games like that. And I don't necessarily blame him. I mean, he wasn't at his best, but he only gave up 3 runs. And the bullpen pitched well enough that they only gave up 3 runs in that game, and they still lost. Because, I'm sorry, the bullpen didn't, but the bullpen blew up. But the other part of it is they only scored 3 runs. And I think that in that game, that's when you start to think, okay, this probably is not going to happen. Now they play in St. Louis for 3 games. Cardinals are not great. They're sort of okay. This division is very winnable. These games are very winnable. The Cardinals actually have a losing record now that I look at it. They're closer to 500 than the Pirates. At the end of the day, when you look at the Pirates and you say to yourself this, do they really actually care? Do they care about winning? Do they have any thoughts about trying to do things differently? And the answer is easily no, they don't. And the reason I know they don't is because we're still sitting here Monday. And, of course, they've got a game in St. Louis tonight, so they have to basically sort of show up and play. But at this point, there's no other rational explanation for why they continue to go down the same path every single night with Derek Shelton as they do. And you can say whatever you want to say, and you'd be right when you say, yeah, but it's not just Shelton, it's Ben Cherington. I agree with that. But changing Ben Cherington is more of a long run, look at it kind of goal. You're trying to figure out a way to sort of change this season a little bit. There's only one answer for that, right? And it's you've got to move on from the manager. People can say whatever they want to say about, it's not his fault. It is his fault. Yes, he hasn't had a lot to work with all the time. Yes, he's got some holes and flaws in his roster. Yes, I understand all that, okay? But at the end of the day, when you look at it from that standpoint, he is at a place right now where he probably has cost them at least 4 or 5 of the games that they've lost. With the decisions he makes, the lineups he puts together, the pitching decisions he makes, all of those things, guess what? At some point, you have to look at the manager and say you haven't done a good enough job to get it done. And I think that if you really are serious as an organization, which I think the Pirates are, if you're really serious as an organization, you have to kind of look at it and say, you know what? Something needs to change. You can't really fire all the players. It's not realistic, is it? You can't really make many changes to your lineup. There are a couple of guys that, I look at and say, well, maybe you bring this guy up or bring that guy up. But again, I don't think necessarily bringing guys up or changing, you're really not going to change the roster all that much. You just aren't. There's not this like plethora of guys that are down there in the minors being held down that you say, well, let's bring them up. And when you bring them up, they're going to change the team. I don't know that those guys exist. People are excited about a couple of pitchers. First of all, I don't know that starting pitching has been necessarily really their problem. You want to tell me you're going to bring a couple of these guys up and put them in the bullpen? Okay, I might listen to you. But I've had a number of people say to me, it's not going to matter and it's not fair. Not going to matter because, you know what? They're going to be the same roster anyway. You're right. But you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, Derek Shelton is legitimately 140 games under 500 as a manager. He has like the worst record of any guy who's been a manager for 5 or 6 years to start his career with the same team. The worst record in the history of Major League Baseball. If you move on from him, you at least are shaking something up on the field and giving yourself a chance. And the chance that you're giving yourself is, basically, you're giving yourself a chance to maybe see some things a little different, have a little bit more accountability, and everything else. And I think that's the thing that sometimes a coaching change actually do. That's the point. The point is you make a coaching change or a managerial change or whatever, sometimes not because you think it's going to be a magic button, but because you're going to send a message to everybody that, you know what, we are actually trying to do something, trying to win, trying to, maybe figure this out in some ways, that we can figure it out and try and win. And I just don't know that you can basically say that if you stay the course with Derek Shelton, you can look at your fans and you can basically say, yes, we hear all the complaining. We hear all the people that are, upset. But guess what? We feel like right now we have the best chance to win with the way that we're set up. You can't say that. It's one thing if it's basically two guys or, 2 years, or maybe you're into your third year and there's been some improvement. You are not as good now as you were 6 years ago when you took over. And I don't know that you can continue to figure, well, we're going to have, a lot of things happen in May and June, so just hang on. There's no reason to believe that. None. And since there's no reason to believe that, why exactly are you staying the course with Derek Shelton? And again, I get it. He's somebody that you owe, because you gave him a extension and all that stuff. Man, I get it. I understand all that. I understand how it works. But it's one of the things that I tell you is really frustrating, right? Is that it's not working. Everybody knows it's not working. Hasn't been working. Period. And so it's year 6 now. It's not a situation of where, and I'm not a person that believes you make change just to make change. But you do basically have to try and figure out what kind of change you can make that might shake it up just a little bit. And I am just going to tell you that I don't believe for 1 second that this team is even really playing for this guy anymore. I get it. You owe him a lot of money and you don't want to, you owe him a lot, on his contract, and you don't want to be a team that just, or a small market team or whatever the crap that you talk about. I get all that. But I'm telling you, you have to make a move of some sort. you have to figure out, listen, I'm okay with Ben Cherington going too. Trust me. But to me, if you change the general manager now, you're really not changing the team. That's a long-term move. You got to figure out now, what is a short-term move? What is something we can do right now that might actually have a little bit of an effect on the field right now for the rest of the year? And I'm telling you, when I watch the Pirates play, I see a team that's listless. I see a team that's uninterested. I see a team that has no life. I see a team that makes mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, that can't play even fundamentally good baseball. I see a team where guys get picked off to end innings. They get picked off a base to end innings. I see a team that, throws to the wrong base still. I see all of these things where I just don't get it. I really, really don't get it. I saw something the other day that I think is really ridiculous. Two things. One, they're 3-15 against teams with winning records. The other thing is they have a 641 OPS. That's as bad as it gets. And so, after Sunday's game when they lost 4-0, they got shut out by the Padres on getaway day. We had to hear Derek Shelton talk again about, well, we just got to hit better. Well, if it was that simple, you'd be doing it. I think when you watch this team, it really is ridiculous. They have no life, and it seems to me that they just don't seem to care anymore. I mean, how many times do we watch them, strike out and, take bad at bats or bad approaches? They run the bases poorly. And to me, you need to have a little bit, just a little bit of pride and a little bit of fire and a little bit of want to, if you're going to try and win, in the major leagues. And the Pirates, to me, they have not done that. Haven't done it. They've been a team that plays like they don't care. And that, to me, is all about the manager. You take the manager, you start there. At the end of the year, if it doesn't get better, which it probably isn't, then you get rid of Ben Cherington too. You clean out the, entire organization and go out, hire a good baseball guy who's going to build an organization that knows what the hell they're doing. But again, people say, well, why are you just basically singling out Shelton? I'll tell you, right, because that's the one move you can make right now in season that might make a difference. And if you go to St. Louis and lose 2 out of 3 or something, I'll be honest with you, Derek Shelton would not be the manager. He wouldn't already be the manager if I was a guy. And I would say that I am very, very sensitive to two things. One, you know what? I don't want anyone to get fired or lose their job. I don't think that's a good thing. And of course, we live in a society where people try and get you fired for whatever. That's a them problem, not a you problem. But at the end of the day, you know what? Find him another job within the organization somewhere. Find him something to do, because he clearly should not be the manager of the major league team. You're paying him. He's making money. He's got a contract. Make him the manager of the, make him the hitting coach in Altoona or something. Do something with him. Make him an advanced scout for 2 years while you're paying him. Do something with him. I don't want anyone to get fired or lose their job, but I do think that his job is to, give the Pirates the best chance to win every night, and he doesn't. His lineups make no sense. He gives guys days off at the weirdest time. Like right now, they should be playing to win games. They should be playing to try and win every game they possibly can. And you know what that means? That means putting your best lineup up there every night. Putting your best guys out there every night. He just hasn't. But the other thing that's scary, and this is probably more a Cherington thing, is that probably some of your best options are the 30-plus-year-old guys you have. That's not good. Not after 6 years of hoarding prospects and building a team and all the other stuff. It's not good at all. So when I look at, the Pirates and what they're doing, I think that, honestly, I can't come up with a single reason why Derek Shelton got on the plane and went to St. Louis. You got Donnie Kelly on the bench. Make him the manager for the rest of the year. See if the guys respond to him a little bit. And I think that's where it is. Okay, see if they'll respond to him, period. And if they respond to him, then maybe, you give him a 2-year deal and see if he can do some things. I would just say that's really, really going to be just one of those things where I would tell you, yes, they have to basically, figure out a way. They've got to figure out a way to change some things up. And I would love to see that. I'd love to see them change some things up. Period. I would love to see them shake it up and let everybody in that clubhouse know that nobody is safe. I'd love to see maybe somebody else figure it out. Period. Give Donnie Kelly a chance. If they respond to him, give him a 2-year deal and he's your guy. If they don't, then he moves on and, Donnie Kelly will find a job somewhere else. That's not a big deal. But the problem you have now in, getting rid of Shelton at the end of the year is you're probably going to have to move on from Donnie Kelly too. And I think he's somebody they should take a look at to say, hey, can this guy manage? Well, give him, what is there now left? 130 games or whatever's left. Give him the opportunity to do it. See if he can make a change or get people to play a little bit better or, get some of these fundamental mistakes, some of which are just a lack of focus. Get some of those off the docket and get guys to play the right way. I would say that is honestly the way you go. But anybody that's sitting here watching the Pirates and haven't said, this is embarrassing, A, and B, it's hard to watch. I tweeted during the game, was it Sunday? Some of these at-bats these guys take, they're terrible. Their at-bats, their approach, everything else, it's terrible. It's hard to watch. They're not even giving themselves a good chance. That's the biggest problem you have. They're not giving themselves a really good chance even. They don't move guys up when they should. They don't, utilize the whole ballpark like they should. And there's, a number of other things that you talk about that they do. But the thing that is really sticking out to me the most about this team, honestly, is just the lack of what I would call being dialed in. The lack of being dialed in. The lack of focus. The lack of, trying really hard to make sure that they do everything in their power to play the game the right way. I would just tell you, it gets to a point where it's silly. And if you continue to run the same team out there every night with the same guy calling the shots every night, are you really, really giving yourself the best opportunity to win? Also, are you really, really giving yourself the best opportunity to have some semblance of credibility with your fans? Start with Shelton. The other thing I would do, and I know this would be, you can't do that. Yeah, I would do that. I'd start with Shelton. I would probably move on from Tommy Pham. Bring up whoever the hell you think is your next outfield prospect. But why do we have to watch Tommy Pham every day? It makes no sense to me. I probably would move Majinski out of the rotation, right, and bring one of the young kids up, put them in and see what they can do. Doesn't make sense, some of the stuff they're doing. But Tommy Pham is a guy who's batting 184. What is he, 37 years old? How is he helping you? Adam Frazier's batting 227. You can say, well, they're major league guys and they can help with depth and all that other good stuff. Really? You can't find a couple of guys that are maybe have potential to be better if they get more experience. You can't find a couple of guys in your organization that can do what those two guys have done. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to me. At this point, it's so stupid. I can't even really make sense out of it. Frazier and Pham, just so you understand where I'm coming from, right? They have 195 at-bats. And they've driven in a combined total of 15 runs. That's it. 15 runs. By contrast, they've struck out 48 times between them. I mean, you can find guys that give you that kind of production. And quite frankly, I'd much rather see two younger guys out of the organization who maybe actually have a future of some sort. I'd rather see that than watching Tommy Pham go out there every night. And as much as I love Andrew McCutchen, it's scary to me that he's one of your best hitters. You have to have him in the lineup because he's one of your best hitters, even though he's old. I don't know. Oneil Cruz is starting to come into his own at the plate, but he still strikes out on some of the worst pitches I see a guy strike out. He steals bases, but he also runs himself out of innings. And defensively, not very good. But he's your best player, period. I can live with that because he's still relatively young. But the other thing is, please, can we please stop with if they had Spencer Horwitz, this would all be different. No, it wouldn't. He's a journeyman at best. He's a guy that is basically a light power hitting first baseman. He's a bargain basement guy that if he's your second first baseman, you're probably okay. But no serious team would have him as their starting first baseman. It ain't like he's Lou Gehrig or something. He's going to come here and hit the ball over the field and help this team score runs. He's not. Okay? Could we stop with if Nick Gonzalez and Spencer Horwitz didn't get hurt, could we stop with that too, please? It's silly. It really is. Nick Gonzalez is a nice little ball player. He's, if he's player 1, 2, or 3 on your team, you're probably not good enough. But if he's your second baseman and he's your 7th or 8th best player, 7th or 8th best hitter, and he's a good fielder, okay, you can live with that. I'm just saying, I enough of the excuses, enough of the different reasons why we have to, tolerate certain things. And if the Pirates are a real organization, what they need to do, like I said, is move on from Derek Shelton. But again, the big thing there is they don't need to fire him, just reassign him within the organization. That's what I would do. I would reassign him within the organization. Or if he doesn't want to do that, then, we work out a buyout and buy. But I don't see how he got on the plane to go to St. Louis. I figured for sure, after the way that they've played down the last 10 games, in year 6, by the way, I just don't know how you bring him back. He's not the only problem, might not even be the biggest problem, but he's been a problem. And he certainly hasn't been a solution. And so I think that's the most important thing, with this whole thing with the Pirates and Derek Shelton. They've got to do a better job of convincing people they actually want to win. Game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80 cent wings, Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's tonight, Cinco de Mayo. So get there and enjoy some eats and drinks and everything else. Switching gears to the Steelers. One of the more interesting things that happened this weekend was there was a podcast with Terrell Suggs. You remember Terrell Suggs. And he basically talked about Ben Roethlisberger in glowing terms. Now, it should be noted that Suggs and Ben, have become like friends. And, Suggs and Ben had this love-hate relationship and rivalry based on respect. And, so there's a little of that going on because Suggs obviously has made it very clear he's a fan of Big Ben's and that, Big Ben beat him so many times. So there's some of that going on. But I thought it was amazing. He said, I would say Roethlisberger's underrated. He got more rings than Rodgers, more rings than Drew Brees, more rings than Marino. He's got as many as Peyton and Eli. Suggs said. He was on the Rory and Mal podcast. I would say Roethlisberger is the most underrated. He does have a lot of rings. He does have 2 rings, and he could have had a third. But I don't know that that's where I say here or there on his resume. I still think Rodgers is better than Ben. I still think Marino is better than Ben. I think Warren Moon is better than Ben, and Dan Fouts is better than Ben. Those guys, didn't win any Super Bowls. And so, looking at it like that, where exactly is he rated? I would say most people have Ben somewhere in between, like maybe the 8th and the 15th best all-time quarterback. And that's probably about where he should be. So I don't know that he's underrated other than, people don't generally talk about him as being one of the all-time greats. But if you ask people, most people have him either in or close to their top 10. But as I said before, Montana, Brady, Steve Young, Moon, Fouts. I mean, there's so many incredible quarterbacks who are better than Ben that I don't know that he's underrated if you have him anywhere in your top 15. I just don't. I don't think he's underrated because that's about where he should be. Someone asked, is he the best scrambler? No. Did you ever see Fran Tarkington or Steve Young play? I mean, those 2 guys sort of were revolutionary in the way they do that. Ben's a Hall of Famer, elite. First ballot, by the way, which further suggests he's not underrated because he's a consensus first ballot Hall of Famer. Whenever he's ready, 2 more years or whatever it is, that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Period. And as a result, obviously he is clearly rated very, very high. And most people feel good about him. It is nice that Terrell Suggs threw him some flowers. That shows you a lot about the respect that, the Ravens and the Steelers have for each other. And, Suggs and Ben have had an interesting relationship for sure over the course of the time. But if I were to look at the greatest quarterbacks, in fact, you do this right here, right? You do this here all, and basically, all these lists are mostly all top 10 lists. But let's go top 25 here. Top 25. Okay, this guy here, Norm Van Broeklen's 25. Len Dawson, 24. Fran Tarkenton, 23. Tarkenton's too low. Moon, 22 is too low. Jim Kelly, forgot about him, 21, too low. Kurt Warner, 20. Ben Roethlisberger, he has him at 19. He has Russell Wilson ahead of Ben Roethlisberger. That's insanity. Terry Bradshaw is 17th. I mean, this guy's list is a joke. Sid Luckman, 16th. Steve Young, 15th. Aikman, 14th, I think, is very overrated. Bart Starr, 13th, is probably overrated. Brett Favre at 12, that's probably where he should be. Sammy Baugh, I didn't see him enough. Aaron Rodgers at 10. I don't think there's been 10 better quarterbacks than Aaron Rodgers. And this here is lunacy to me. John Elway at 9 is ridiculous. He should be way higher. Roger Staubach, there's no way he should be higher than Terry Bradshaw on this list. Marino is 7th. Brees is 6th. I think Brees is a compiler. He should be that way. Otto Graham is 5th, based mostly on the fact that he won 10 championships or whatever. But that was, basically when they were still wearing leather helmets. Johnny U, I guess I could live with that at 4. Peyton Manning 3. Montana 2. And, of course, Brady 1. Very subjective, but this guy has been, 19th or 18th? And he's got some other guys behind him that I would say should be ahead of him. At the end of the day, Ben should be about 15th. That's where I would have him. That's just me, though. I believe that, he's one of the all-time greats. Well, if you're considered one of the top, 20 or 21 or 25 best players at a position in the NFL, you are an all-time great. You're a first ballot Hall of Famer. Period. I guess tomorrow I'll give you my list. I really have to study it a lot closer to give you my actual list. But my thoughts are probably Brady is 1 no matter what. And Montana is in the top 5 or 6. I would say Fouts is probably in the top 5 or 6, right? Marino, obviously, is one of the top 5 or 6. So, I mean, there's a list, but it is always interesting when we talk about these lists. Tomorrow we're going to talk more baseball. We've got Tony Baselli coming on from the Wild Things. We'll do that. We have a lot of fun every time he joins us. We'll figure out also what's next for the Steelers, who start OTAs, or I'm sorry, rookie minicamp, I think, starts either this week or next week. Until then, enjoy your day.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.